Okay. Good morning, Dr. Tina. How are you?
Good morning. I'm fine. Thank you. How are you?
Fine, thank you. Welcome to Upaya again after how many years? 12 years, yeah. Dr. Tina was visiting students in 2010, yeah. And he right now is assistant professor. So after she come after exchange the exchange students, if I'm not mistaken, Dr. Tina completes master in Kingston University. Is it?
Warwick University, yes.
Oh, in Warwick University, Master of Science in Kingston and International and European Employment Relations in Warwick. Yeah. And then finally, she accomplished PhD in business study in King College London, yeah, one of the best university in UK. And then become researcher in King College, yeah. Postdoctoral researcher in Switzerland, University of the Neuchâtel, or how to pronounce? And then
Neuchâtel.
Neuchâtel, okay. And then Rotterdam School of Management, Erasmus. And then right now in Radboud University, yeah.
Yes.
You moving from a country to another country. For us, Indonesian student, is a very distinction, yeah. Because moving to one country to another country is quite challenging, yeah. And then surprisingly, I read one of your article which said this. Suddenly, I feel like a migrant. Yeah, identity and mobility threat. Yeah, interesting. Yeah, yeah. I'm wondering if you can throw back your experience in Indonesia. What do you think? What do you feel about your experience in exchange program in Indonesia?
So I came to Ubaya in my third year of my bachelor studies. And maybe as a context to that, I studied psychology in the Netherlands, in Maastricht at that time. And that was already my, being in the Netherlands, my second country living abroad within Europe. So in high school, I was also in Ireland, going to high school there. I'm originally from Germany, from Berlin. And I really like being abroad, being exposed to different cultures. And in Maastricht, there was the opportunity also to go to Asia. And since, this is really far away, A, and B, also quite different culturally, I was very curious. So I simply applied for the opportunity and got accepted by the faculty to go to Indonesia. And that's how I ended up in Surabaya, at Ubaya. And it was really a cultural shock. It is quite far. We talk about the East and the West culturally, the individualistic and the more group level things. And for me, I think what I remember most is I was very much used to public transport. And Surabaya and walking. And in Surabaya, it was quite difficult, A, to walk, and B, the public transport was more informal, so it was much easier to use a cab. But that was not really something I was used to growing up in Berlin, where you have like a big network of transportation with metro, tram, buses, trains. And also food-wise, it's quite different. I mean, my family always joked as a child, I was like very typical for my area because I only ate potatoes.
Really?
No pasta, no rice. And when coming to Ubaya, I had to get used to the rice, and I loved it. But so food-wise, it's also quite different. In terms, I'm a vegetarian. I found that a bit challenging also in Ubaya to follow that and to get used to the cuisine. And in terms of studying, it was also, I think it comes back to the individualistic cultural differences in the sense that in Ubaya, it felt more difficult that people spoke up. Thus, for me, in my schooling, I was trained from the beginning. So in high school, we would be graded how much we spoke up. So that's not always positive because people simply speak up and speak nonsense. But yeah, you had to get adjusted. Also the group work, I remember, I mean, it's a very stereotypical thing that here in Europe, we also have to do a lot of group work, but usually we would get the task and we would start slowly prepare and arrange who will do what. And I remember in Ubaya, it was more like 3 days before, okay, let's get started and let's work very intensely on this. And I was like, but we haven't planned this. Like I need planning for it. So the time, the feeling of time and the planning of time is very different. And it's just then going with the flow and learning, to be open-minded, to adapt to the things. Obviously, I was in the minority in Ubaya, so it's not like you have to listen and to go with the flow and to be open to that. And that's some skills you are learning when going abroad. Train your open-mindedness and flexibility and accept that you probably will be challenged quite a lot in different ways.
To be honest, some exchange student like you, from the point of view of Indonesian student or Indonesian faculty members, we had a thought. Even right now, we have a thought that you from Europe is superior. But I have no idea why you talk that you feel in minority, and then even in Europe. Dr. Tina is from Germany, and I feel when I was in Europe, everyone in Europe thought that everyone from Germany is more superior than. What do you think? How comes you feel minority in Ubaya?
Because I was a minority,
From the number, from
number wise, and I think it. I mean, when you come into a lot of politics and also studying diversity and inclusion at the moment, it is about, of course, in the culture you grew up, and perhaps also in the German context, it is also accepted. We are perceived of being punctual, of being reliable, and delivering certain things. But if you enter a different cultural context, it is always we should be open to that. And I mean, I do agree that if you, for instance, come from the US background, you are taught you are the best nation in the world, and people also believe it. And for them, if I observe them coming to Europe, for some of them, it's really hard to adjust and maybe sometimes to shut up. But it's, I think that's so important if you go abroad, that you not just take the lens, how you grew up, and we all have that lens. Most of us simply grew up in one context. So we are only used to that context and consider that as, the given or possibly the best because we are taught in this context. But I think if you go abroad, you learn the most if you kind of try to be more perceptive and not judgmental living in a new context. And it would have not worked for me if I would have told my study groups in Ubaya, we do it this way because I think this is the best way. It did not. I tried that in the beginning to suggest it, but it was also not because I thought it's the best way, but because I thought this is what I got taught and this is how I usually do it. And I very quickly learned that is not happening. And it's about being adaptable. And I think going abroad, that teaches you a lot to be adaptable and realize that there are a lot of different ways to live and to see things.
Yeah, it's a great, great experience. It seems to me, that everyone want to find a comfort zone, a close family, and then so a lot of friends, and prefer to stay in their own city where he know a lot of people and then feel safety on. But you challenge yourself, you move to another country, to another, and then you become minority. Almost maybe in UK you become minority, in Indonesia even you become minority, and then it's. I'm wondering what sort of thing that challenge you to explore something new, and it's risk of become minority.
I think for me, it's really being curious that drove me the most. Like I wanted to see places, I wanted to understand how things are different. And what I do like of being abroad, and that's only after, over the time also going back to Germany, living there for a couple of months, what I realized being abroad means for me more freedom because I know how the German context works and I know all the implicit and explicit rules, which for instance, at the time I arrived in Indonesia, I certainly did not know. I know when I, for instance, applied for a visa, I got taught by the ambassador in Germany, like, oh, we do these things, you just did this wrong. So I already got my first lesson before I arrived in Indonesia at the embassy of Indonesia and Germany. But I feel sometimes also quite restricted in the German context because I know this is how I should behave or this is what is expected of me. And being abroad, I feel like if I do things differently, even though I know how they are supposed to be done in that local context, I have the freedom as a foreigner, as a minority, to act differently because I am not brought up in this context, and people are like, oh yeah, they're more accepting if you do things differently because you're not from there. So that's what I, to be honest, enjoy most for being abroad, to have this freedom and to, if you for yourself realize certain things how you want to have it done, or you would like to do things, it's easier from my perspective to be abroad.
Okay, excellent. Yeah. Thank you. Nice, nice experience, guys. Upaya students, anyone who would like to ask something? This is Dr. Tina. He was exchange students in Upaya, and now she become. I hope soon she become full professors in one of the best university in Europe. Yeah. So we have opportunity to talk with her. Anyone like to raise questions? Guys?
You can also write it down if you feel more comfortable via the Zoom chat.
Michael, want to ask something? Yeah, this is Zoom generations. Yeah. Do you remember in Indonesia, most students tend to be silent? This is typical. Yeah. Okay, there's a student raise a hand. Matisha. Matisha.
Hello.
Hey.
Thank you for the time. So I have a question. What are the struggles for going abroad that I think I need to anticipate? Thank you.
I think they are different for everybody, and I was thinking about it. Me coming to Indonesia, it's certainly different compared for you if you would go to Europe, and it also depends where you are going, you know, literally how far culturally away the country is. But I think what all for everybody accounts similar is that you will miss home, and what I just talked about, that you are used to certain ways of living, and most likely if you go abroad that will be different. I don't know if it can start with, you know, where are the grocery stocks in the supermarket. I remember I moved not quite 2 years ago from Switzerland to the Netherlands. And I have lived before in the Netherlands, but still it was in a different city. And I wanted to buy something very quickly in the supermarket because I needed it for cooking. And I just couldn't find it. And when I was it was in the first week of arriving in the Netherlands, and it was during COVID, during a lockdown. So it was not the best timing, but that got, yeah, it frustrated me a lot at that moment because I just moved. I simply wanted something easy. And I would say, so A, missing home, but B, also if you arrive there, everything is not as easy as you are used to. It's not simply going to the grocery shop, especially the first 2-3 weeks, because there's a different logic in the grocery shops usually. Also in terms of transportation, you have to figure things out. You know, how do I get from A to B? Especially, I mean, I was fortunate at Ubaya to live more or less across the campus on opposite streets. So it was very simple to figure out just walking across the street to reach the campus. But then you also have to figure out where are the rooms, how's the logic working, and usually people won't babysit you. So being independent, being able to ask the questions, to realize what do you need, are some of the things. And sometimes you also have to deal with your own frustrations. I'm not the most patient person. So I had my frustrating moment in the supermarket 2 years ago. And that's also something, yeah, you will encounter, like, where do I get my lunch? What kind of lunch do they have there? For you, probably going to Europe, depending on the time, right now it's rather cold, and I would say a coldness that's non-existing in Indonesia. And I had the other way around. When I arrived in Indonesia, I thought, oh my God, it's so hot and I have to be very careful of the sun. Mm-hmm. So although I just had to walk, I don't know, 4 or 5 minutes, I would put on thick sun cream, like SPF 50, you know, to not get sunburned. But when I quickly realized that was not necessary, because I would just walk from my, you know, I couldn't walk a lot in Ubaya, so I would just walk from A to B very quickly, or take a bus or taxi. So that was completely unnecessary. So climate might be a thing, but I think the most important thing is to have these frustrating moments and to accept those and to expect those, that it's not as easy and smooth as at home, and that probably will also lead to missing home.
So you feel frustrated during the time?
In Surabaya, sometimes you have public transport with these tuk-tuks and yeah, I was sometimes like, how's this working? And yeah,
So
it took a while. Yeah.
I just noticed that Dr. Tina was the only one exchange student, even until right now during my life in Ubaya. She's the only one who stay in kos-kosan in the front of Ubaya. The rest of exchange students prefer to stay in apartment. Yeah. So she got to know a lot about the behavior of Indonesian students. So one time she asked me, oh, how Indonesian students spend a lot of money for facial. Do you remember? Do you remember?
No, I don't.
10 or 20,000 million, 20 million for just for facial. What does it? How they spend a lot of money for such thing? Okay, I also have no idea how to answer it. So actually, she know much better about student of Upaya than me. So actually, surprisingly, so and then she come from psychology and moved to right now she's assistant professor in School of Business. So actually, it's a lot of perspective. So that's the thing that I remember about um, 20 million in 2010. Yeah, 20 million is a lot. Yeah, not right now. Yeah, even right now, it's still a lot. But okay.
I don't remember.
Do you remember?
Yeah.
Okay. So okay, it seems to be, I don't know, that's a part of shock culture. And then second issue that I like to highlight that and then Dr. Tina interested in what you call Chinese multinational enterprise. I have a thought, yeah, in Ubaya, in our class this time, there's a lot of friend or college student from with a Chinese ethnic, and then does it influence you the way you have a thought about Chinese ethnic, Chinese community, or?
No, I think well, the experience of being in Indonesia, and also, I mean, that was also one of the reasons why I wanted to go to Asia. That I felt like culturally, if we look at the global culture, at least from a European perspective, and I'm mainly talking from a European perspective here, because that's my main reference point. Is that everything was very Americanized, or I mean, we have our European way, but at that time, 2010 and before, there was very little influence about Asian countries, and I felt like I really want to. China was on the rise, so I really was interested to experience also, where most of the people in our world live, how they are living, and how everyday life looks like at the other side of the world, basically. For me, I think in general, the experience being in Indonesia opened up this perspective of you can also look at things differently. And most people who are interested in China academically would focus on how European companies move to China and how they deal with the challenges over there. But I think being abroad in Indonesia then opened up like if people can't, not people, but companies in this context of my PhD studies, what is the perspective of them coming to Europe? So yes, it did influence me for broadening my horizon and taking up different perspectives.
Okay. So it's a kind of novelty you try to find. So there's a question from Kevin. Kevin, you want to speak up? Kevin Prasetyo. Kevin, she text me direct message. Kevin. All right.
Yes.
Kevin asked, Maya asked, what is her major? Maybe your research interest, yeah. So you come from, yeah. What is your major, Dr. Tina?
Well, I did study psychology in my bachelor and then employment relations, which is kind of business management, politics together. So it's about the relation of management and employers. And in Europe, you also have trade unions and how also the context of the government is influencing that. And currently, I study mainly diversity and knowledge management. So that's my major. I guess I can say it like that.
Yes.
But I was also wondering, Madhusatya, how, if we answered your question, or if you're wondering.
You got two master degree, yeah? You got 2 master degree?
Yeah, yes.
Okay.
One in employment relation and one in research methods.
How did you find your way? I mean, the patients during the age of the student. I mean, in around 20. At that age, I still have no idea where I have to go. And then, what about you? How do you find your? Finally, you become move to business, school of business, not in psychology anymore. Those are the best, yeah. King College, Maastricht, that's our best university in Europe, yeah.
Yes, it's really the context. I was not, so to be very honest, how I decided to study in the UK was rather through my boyfriend. Because he wanted to study in the UK. I did not necessarily want to, but I was open to that. And then we applied for, I think, 10 or 20 universities where we both liked the degrees they offered. So we each applied for a program. He studied politics. And then basically we looked at where did we get accepted and which was the best university, and we both were happy with the programs we got accepted in. So yeah, I applied for a lot of different programs, and so it was really not, it was partially a conscious decision and partially let's see what's happening.
Okay, that's
the honest answer.
Yes, that's the journey. Not yet come to end, but still a long way to go. And then you finally come to AMA community, academics of management associations, yeah, in US, yeah.
Yes, but I would say it's really, if I don't know, some of you might already know exactly what you want to study, and then I'm like, go for that, because you know, and others might not. I was part of that group, and my strategy was just to look at different programs which were offered, and what resonates with you and what does not. And then there were some programs which resonated with me, and I talked to my professors, and I remember one was about something with criminology and psychology, and I don't know what else, but they were saying, then, is this really a program which helps you to get a job, or is this a program which is simply sounds interesting to students? So being also a little bit critical.
What is it?
Somebody unmuted himself.
Okay. What is it?
So yeah, simply looking at things and then critically look at what resonates with you and what doesn't. And if it resonates, is it helpful in your career?
So one of your research interests is about knowledge transfer, yeah. But when you move to other place, and then you become minority, a lot stressful about culture difference. How do you learn about knowledge? It's most of
Saya apa?
Halo, Syahrofil. Okay, I means when you come to other countries, I means Syahrofil. Okay, and then shock culture is bring us into under pressure, yeah, and then during that circumstance, how do you can learn from others? I mean, focus on knowledge, because living in different place, or sometimes we spend a lot of energy and time focus on trying to adapt the culture, the different culture, and then how do you learn from, let's see, one of the best university in different country in UK, even you from Germany, and even in US, and even you move to also what you call academic of management in US, and then but your study support knowledge transfer. What does it seems have and that's the phenomena is similar to the MNT in
Yes.
Europe, yeah.
I guess it's about observing and to see, I mean, there are different phases if you move abroad. And I think first you need to understand also if you move to a new job, each organization have their own culture. So first you need to understand how things are going. And that's by observing and asking questions. And I think that accounts also if you go to a new country, you observe and ask questions, and you not try to imitate things because people know you are from somewhere else.
Wow.
But I would say, observe, go your own steps, perhaps contextualize things. So what I, for instance, also, it's a random example, but if I go to a physician, general practitioner here, I would always remind them, yes, I can speak your language, but it's my first year. I'm actually using the healthcare system in the Netherlands. So also making other people aware where you come from. So if you move to a new company or new country, you can also mention, this is my first time in Europe, or, this is my first couple of months being in a new organization, so that people simply not assume that you know everything. And then it's about finding people around you who can explain things, who have the time and the willingness to explain. So Harry, that's why I asked you a lot of questions, because you were open to answer also a lot of questions, or at least think about them. And it is finding people around you who are willing and patient enough to answer your questions and to understand that you come with a different lens, with a different perspective and experience, and willing to explain then things to you. And I think this reciprocity of, you have to be open to wanting to learn, not simply to survive, and then other people also willing to share their knowledge with you and to teach you, and to in that way also learn from you.
Interesting. When one of your article talk about Brexit, yeah. And then it seems to me that even after the Brexit, so it's mean that labor in other countries in Europe cannot move to UK freely, and the COVID also what you call make situation getting worse. It means that migration or visit to a different country or move to another country like US, for example, Asia, go to US is like stigma that the virus, the COVID virus come from Asia, and then what actually happens right now when you not stay in your own country, right? Not in Germany, but in Switzerland, and then move to the Netherlands, and then migration or moving, no, even Brexit, even try to build the protection. Then how do you experience with those situations?
You mean the rise of populism and being
Yes.
more critical? I think Trump did not have necessarily an impact on me in Europe living abroad. But of course, the UK, I have many friends living there. I lived there also. That was a shock, and it became then clear also as a European how fortunate we are, because until Brexit happened, me moving to the Netherlands, moving to the UK, I was not thinking I'm migrating in any way, because it was also for studying. So it was rather a temporary time of amount, even though a PhD takes 4 years or longer. That it was simply thinking within this European context. And I think in Europe, we are quite fortunate to easily move from one country to another, especially being a student and not having to think about taxes and health insurance, because it can stay with your parents' health insurance to a certain age. That Brexit then kind of hold the mirror that, we are not seen as Europeans within the UK,
Really?
but we are seen as migrants, as foreigners. And I don't know how easy that is to understand from an Indonesian context, but before that, we were painfully aware that we are not British living in the UK. But we felt European, and like the UK was part of the EU, so it felt like a equal playing ground. Like we have the right to move around, so we can do this. And the UK leaving the EU kind of showed our movement is restricted, like to the UK, and it also felt like we are less welcome to it. And for me, what I also learned from that paper, what I realized is that migration, it really depends also how long and how permanently you move somewhere. So Harry, you also moved to different countries. But for instance, moving to Indonesia for 6 months, that didn't feel like migration. That felt like a long stay somewhere that you can get a good insight into a culture. But I knew I didn't plan to stay there for 20 years, which would be completely different in terms of the mindset and feeling. And it's the same with most of the countries I stayed. Now in the Netherlands, it's a different story. Me and my partner, we feel like we might want to stay here because he's also Dutch. And that's the first time I feel like, oh, maybe I am a migrant, because I'm considering to stay here long term and not just for a couple of years. So, but that's a different mindset. The semester abroad is simply, you have time to explore things. It's not simply a holiday. So you can really explore more of a culture, but you also have a benefit to not needing to stay there endlessly.
So if you want to explore, holiday is not enough. Yeah, you have to at least study. Or there's a question, Jessica, you want to ask something? Jessica? Hello, Jessica.
Sorry, no.
Oh, okay.
Question.
Okay. Uh, um, uh, I'm wondering about living in a campus in Europe. Yeah, I noticed that Dr. Tina live in many campus. So actually, in Indonesia, when we applied, let's see, just like me as a lecturer, or I'm no associate professor, and then I have to register at the Ministry of Education. It's mean if I want to move to another university, I have to ask release form from the Upaya and get acceptance from another university. So because the a lecturer in Upaya, just like me, I get salary and income. The government provide what you call also provide some amount of money uh, to lecture like me who teach in Upaya, even Upaya as a private. So how do you move from country to country, to university to different university? What about the career? If you move to another university, do you start from zero, or you can next follow for the next level? Or okay, can you?
So you usually apply for next level, yes. So that's usually also why you would move. I think what's interesting for the students, perhaps, that some of the universities in Europe are campus universities, but often they are universities who are embedded within cities. So you don't have necessarily one campus, but you would have different faculties in different parts of the city, or if universities have grown recently, there would be one campus, for instance, here in Rotterdam. The business, the management school is a little bit outside of the city, so not in the city center. And there they have built a campus, but other faculties are in the city center. And that also means that often there is not, it depends. In the UK, you have a lot of student accommodation. In Switzerland and the Netherlands, it's less organized student accommodation, and you would have to find privately your accommodation. And what happens there is often that you share a flat with each other. So each of you, 2-3 students, have their own room in a flat and share the kitchen. And if it's a luxury apartment, they also share a living room or something. But it's much more independently self-organized. I guess if you would go abroad, that the international office and the host university can help you with that. But it's much more independent and less organized compared to other places. For instance, the US or UK, you have a campus university with the accommodation on campus. And I would say that's less often the case in continental Europe.
Thank you. Last questions, yeah. Because I promised just 1 hour. Dr. Tina is very busy. Sorry. So thank you very much for them. But before last, there's last questions. First, I noticed that from LinkedIn, you move from. You have a lot of experience with many universities like King College London, Maastricht, Upaya, Warwick, Kingston. What else? And then in Netherlands, Switzerland. So if you like to give suggestions for students of Upaya, what is your suggestion to choose what university that you recommend for Upaya students?
It's hard to say. I think it depends what you really want. I wouldn't necessarily first make a decision about the university, but rather the country. And then it depends on, it also depends what you want from your study abroad. Do you know what you want to study, and you really want to gain more insights from a different university, from a different country and academic tradition as well, so that you experience it faster? Or for me, the context was more important. I really wanted to move to, for my semester abroad, to experience an Asian country, so that I have this exposure of a very different culture. And I think that's the first part. Do you want to experience snow and cold weather, or rather would you prefer to have the warmer weather when maybe Southern Europe, Italy, Spain is more interesting? If you say, I don't know how well I can deal with it, and if I want to deal with it. Also, yeah, and in terms of countries, when you, for instance, in the UK, you have very, very good universities like Oxford and Cambridge, but you have also to be aware that other universities are ranked rather low, and the quality can also be a bit lower compared to Oxford and Cambridge. Compared to that in the Netherlands, the university level, it's quite similar. Of course, you have the rankings, and one university is better ranked than the other. But I would say overall, I have now experienced 3 different universities in the Netherlands. 2 I'm teaching, and another one I did my bachelor. And I feel the quality is not that different among these universities. And I would say this also accounts for Switzerland. And yeah, then it depends, what do you want to experience? You want to go for your classes, then I would see, okay, who is publishing in the rankings, also who is well ranked in this subject, or who has an interesting, academic professor or group who are teaching in these subjects. And otherwise, personally, I would say a semester abroad is a great personal experience as well. So I would look for what do you want in the semester abroad? Do you want to experience something completely different? Do you want to have a little bit of a different exposure? You could also do a semester abroad in Japan or in China, or in Malaysia, which is probably not so different to the Indonesian context. It will have differences. And then also, do you want to learn a different language? The moment you not only want to practice your English, but maybe you want to learn French, then France might be a good option. If you want to learn Chinese, Mandarin, China is a good option. So depends also the purpose you have with your study. And then depending on that, have a look at what you would like, where you would like to go.
Okay, thank you. Among those institutions, what is the best time that you feel among those universities?
As a student, I really enjoyed Maastricht a lot, I have to say. I thought the quality of the classes I had was really good. I was, to be honest, a bit disappointed when I moved to the UK, actually. I thought the quality of my classes in Maastricht were much better. Although when I moved to a master program, and I felt also in terms of difficulty, it did not really move up, but stayed the same, or was even a bit lower. So that was surprising to me. And also, I am biased, but I think in the Netherlands, you have really high quality teaching. I'm not only saying that because I'm teaching here. But I think the quality is high. You have a good supervision, smaller classes. For instance, in Germany, you would usually have lectures with 600 students or more. And you do have lectures also with a lot of students in the Netherlands, but when you have also tutorials or working groups, depending in which university you are, they give different names to it. And when you have much more interactions with lecturers, professors, depending on who's teaching the class. And I really value that.
Okay.
So in terms of quality and price, I think the Netherlands is a good choice in general, regardless the university.
Okay. So guys, if you want to study abroad, do not look into the country, look into the school and the professor, and then it's good if you notice about the what you call peer group for learning community, or what you call to share knowledge. What did you what subject do you teach, Dr. Tina?
I teach mega trends and management. So how globalization, populism, technology, so how the context is also shaping the way we interact, we manage things. Academic skills. So that's where we're focusing on, how to write a paper. This is for first year students. How to ask questions, how to read a paper, these kind of things, how to write a paper, strategic human resource management, and qualitative research methods.
Also, you moved to qualitative,
Yes.
Because last time you shared about your questionnaire to me, it's of course it's 10 years ago, So you teach 4 subjects,
Yeah.
Okay, I teach how many? 10. Okay, yes, different school, different culture, different. Okay, time is limit. Last time, I would like to invite you to say something to Upaya student, for closing, Dr. Tina.
I would say, studying time is the time you can explore things. So really think about, take the time to challenge yourself, to explore the surrounding. If it's around you, if you have exchange students or if you can go abroad, so that you really can learn from different things you experience, different cultures if you go abroad. And learn to be independent, but also learn about yourself. I would say what I tell my first year students here is that moving from high school to university, you kind of have learned to deal with less structure. And that means that you have to manage yourself better and learn about yourself, how to manage yourself. And going to the university, that's a good time to explore that. You have the time and not yet the pressure, to be a good team member, to be a good employee, and to earn your money, basically. So you have that freedom. And if you go abroad, that's a great way to challenge yourself and get to know yourself in a completely different context.
Thank you very much. I would like to invite you to say something about Upaya, please.
About Upaya?
Yeah.
I thought it was a really, it's a beautiful campus, and I did not expect an Upaya to freeze in the rooms with a cold AC. It's cold here, but I never had blue fingers in my life except in Upaya. So I'm the weak European, not being used to ACs. And I think, you have in the city, you have a big city there where you can explore different ways of living. And here you also took us to the compound to see people who are living next to Upaya, and that really stuck with me as well, to have this opportunity to see different ways of thinking and living.
Okay. Oh, thank you. We finished already. Thank you very much, Dr. Tina, for spend one hour with us with Upaya. Okay, thank you very much for putting the name of Upaya in your LinkedIn. And then I hope we can still keep in touch. Yeah. Thank you very much for
Thank
student of
you.
Upaya. Thank you. Have a nice day. Good luck for your career. I hope I can see you with the professor title next time.
Thank
Thank
you.
you
Have
very
a good
much.
afternoon.
Have a day. Have a
Bye.
good day. Bye bye. Thank you,
Bye.
Dr. Tina.